People warned us that we might hear screaming in Slaughterhouse Canyon. Nobody warned us about the breath. It came right up behind my ear. Warm, shaking, patient, and a thin woman's voice whispered one word that doesn't belong in any desert: hungry. This happened on January 5th, 2026, in Slaughterhouse Canyon, also known as Luana's Canyon, outside Kingman, Arizona. The name sounds exaggerated until you stand inside it at night and feel how sound behaves there. Slaughterhouse doesn't feel like a label. It feels like a memory the land hasn't finished having. Everyone from the area knows some version of the story. A gold miner went out in the 1800s and never came back. His family waited until hunger became the loudest thing in the canyon. What the mother did after that depends on who tells the story. The ending never changes. The canyon learned how to scream, and sometimes it still practices. We didn't go in as thrill seekers. No dares, no rituals, no shouting into the dark. We wanted to see whether the recent recordings people posted, the metallic shrieks, the voice with no echo, were just wind and imagination. I actually hoped they were. We reached the canyon around 11 p.m. Night in the desert doesn't creep in. It falls suddenly, like a lid. As soon as we descended the trail, the temperature dropped. It felt less like air cooling and more like entering somebody else's room without being invited. Sound changes shape down there. It doesn't travel outward the way it should. It sits close to your skin. Even our footsteps made the wrong kind of noise, like the canyon was tired of hearing them already. We turned our lantern off and sat near the dry creek bed. The sky above the rim looked far away, unusable. The walls tilted inward slightly, and for the first time in a long time I had the feeling that a place, not a person, was paying attention to me. The first sound was not a scream. It was soft crying, not loud, not dramatic, the small, careful kind of crying someone makes when they're trying not to upset children who are already scared. It did not come from anywhere in particular. It already existed in the same space as our bodies. I almost spoke to break the tension, but it didn't feel like tension. It felt like listening to something that never stopped. I tried to blame wind. Then I noticed the air wasn't moving at all. Around 1 a.m., the feeling changed. The shape of the canyon didn't shift, but the mood did. The air thickened enough that my ears felt pressure the same way they do before storms. The crying stopped, but the silence afterward didn't relax anything. It tightened everything. Then breath appeared right beside my ear. Not a breeze. Breath, warm in cold air. Trembling, close enough that if a person had been standing there, their shoulder would have been touching mine. The thin voice that came with it, it didn't sound angry or theatrical. It sounded tired in a way that had outlived the original reason for being tired. It whispered, hungry, not like a threat, more like a fact that hadn't changed. Then we heard the children, short, restrained sobs, the kind children make when they think being quiet might help somehow. Each sound cut off fast, like someone was shushing them gently but urgently. None of us moved. It didn't feel like something to chase or interrupt. It felt like something already in progress. Stones shifted on the canyon wall, not falling, holding weight. A place that should not support anyone carried someone anyway. The sound came from directly above us and then stopped like whoever was there had decided they'd gone far enough. Then the scream arrived. Everybody imagines echoes bouncing off the rock. That isn't what happens. The scream replays, exactly the same length each time, exactly the same break halfway through, like something tearing. It doesn't feel thrown across the space. It feels like the canyon itself has learned the noise and is unwilling to forget it. You don't hear it travel. You suddenly have it with you. The scream didn't just replay, it moved closer, not louder, closer. Distance disappeared. The voice came right up to my other ear this time. I could feel breath again. It is impossible to explain how terrifying breath is without a body attached to it. The scream faded into words I couldn't understand, like language worn thin by too much use. A lower voice joined it, a man's voice, tired in a different way. Too late and fully aware of it, I whispered, "We're leaving," not dramatically, just deciding to be alive somewhere else. The canyon didn't let the idea go immediately. Our own breathing became loud. Everything else went quiet. Something leaned not with hands, but with pressure. Like grief itself had learned where lungs are and wanted to share the space briefly. Then the long scream fell through the dark. That's the only way to describe it. It started high, dropped through the air, and finished close to the creek bed without moving a grain of sand. The sound changed as it fell, voice into metal, metal into wind, and then back to voice right before it stopped. The children's crying ended all at once. The silence afterward wasn't relief, it was attention. I did something I didn't plan. "I'm sorry," I said, not to a ghost, to the canyon itself. The reaction was instant. The voice came back to my ear with no space between us, closer than before, small and wrecked and determined to keep existing. Stay. It didn't command, it asked. Something touched the back of my neck, or rather something removed warmth from it. My eyes watered without crying. My body didn't know which reaction to choose, so it tried all of them at once on a small scale. We walked out, not running. Running felt wrong, like it would have turned the canyon into a predator instead of a witness. The walls seemed closer as we left, like the place was memorizing us on purpose. When we reached the car, my phone buzzed. The voice recorder app was open. I hadn't touched it. The file was 11 minutes long. I listened in the passenger seat with the engine running. Most of the recording was our breathing. Then came the small crying sounds again, not distant, not echoing, right against the microphone, like someone had leaned over my shoulder to be included. Everyone told us that if you see her, turn on your flashlight. That was the mistake. The light didn't make her disappear. It made her step closer to the edge of the pond, as if she was remembering exactly how far she had to fall. This happened on January 6, 2026, at Lum's Pond State Park in Newcastle County, Delaware, near the Swan Trail Bridge. By day, it looks harmless. Families fishing, runners with headphones, dogs pulling leashes. Nothing about it advertises what it becomes after dark. Nobody posts the real warning on the signs. In the 1870s, a young girl ran into those woods and didn't make it home. The story doesn't soften itself. She was assaulted and murdered near the bridge and left there. People found her body. They never found who did it. The case went cold, and the town pretended time could do what the court never did. Time didn't fix anything. It just changed who had to listen. We didn't go there as thrill chasing idiots. No yelling challenges into the trees. No daring each other to split up. We read the recent winter reports. The scream at night, the small running footsteps, the blurry child-sized figure at the water's edge that disappears when light hits it. Except, according to more than one hiker, sometimes the light doesn't make her disappear at all. We reached the trailhead around 1100 p.m. January air in Delaware doesn't just feel cold, it feels unsupervised. The kind of cold where sound travels too clearly, where you can hear the difference between branches moving and something reconsidering whether it should move at all. The pond was black glass. The bridge looked smaller than it feels in the stories. The woods leaned over the water like they were trying to see their own reflection and didn't like what they found. We turned off our flashlights and let our eyes adjust. Leaves stopped moving. The quiet felt aware, not empty, not peaceful, just aware in the way a crowded elevator is aware of you. We didn't say her name. Nobody does, because nobody is sure they have the right one, and saying the wrong one feels disrespectful in a place already shaped by disrespect. The first sound was not a scream, it was walking. Small footsteps on wood. You can tell adult steps from child steps without seeing them. Adults correct their balance differently. These didn't. Like quick, stopping suddenly like whoever was making them needed to listen before taking the next two. They crossed the bridge behind us. We turned slowly and saw nothing. Just railings, just water, just dark. Then the smell came in, pond water and something old, wet, like fabric that never dried after being dragged out of a lake and folded anyway. The kind of smell that belongs to a place rather than a person. The temperature dropped in a way that felt chosen, not breeze, removal. Cold left the air everywhere else and gathered exactly where we were standing. The scream came then. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't loud for drama. It was sharp and short, like someone who didn't have breath to spare. It didn't echo through the trees. It stayed close, the exact volume a scream would be if it were meant for only the people on the bridge. Silence followed too quickly afterward, like the sound had been cut off mid-sentence. That silence was worse than the scream. We were told that if you see her, you turn on your flashlight, so that's what my friend did. The beam cut across the planks, pushed into the trees, and slid toward the pond edge. She was already there, not a transparent special effect shape, not a Hollywood ghost, just a small figure at the waterline, the size of a child standing alone where children don't stand alone. Blurry not because of mist, but the way something looks blurry when your brain doesn't agree with your eyes yet. Her head tilted slightly, like she was listening for something she had heard once and expected to hear again. The light didn't scare her away. She stepped closer to the drop-off. It was precise, horribly careful, the way children move when they are very cold and trying not to cry about it. One foot, pause. Another foot, pause, like she was practicing a memory rather than performing for us. I said, without planning to, don't. The word didn't sound like mine. The electronics started failing. Phones dimmed. My friend's flashlight flickered the way batteries do not flicker when they were full 30 minutes earlier. A watch restarted itself. The air around the bridge hummed, quiet but physical, like a transformer somewhere underground was testing its strength. Then we heard running. Fast, light footsteps came across the bridge toward us, but nothing was there. No figure, no movement, just the sound rushing across the boards and stopping exactly where a small hand could have reached ours. The railing beside me chilled suddenly, as if something leaned against it. My hand brushed against air that felt the exact size of fingers and colder than metal in winter. I didn't grab back. I don't think it wanted grabbing. I think it wanted being counted. The pond's surface below us looked deeper than water, black in the way that stops being a color and turns into a condition. Branches reflected without wind. A faint ripple rolled outward from nothing visible. Then the scream came again, not louder, younger, like someone remembered how old they were at the moment their life bent and never stood straight afterward. We saw her face only in outline, not details, not features, just the shape of a head turning in a way heads turn when some adult voice has asked a question that children are not equipped to answer. The light flickered once more. She moved a little closer to the drop. I understood something then that I wish I did not understand. She didn't want light because light makes people look, and looking is not the same as helping. We said nothing loud, nothing commanding. Grief does not obey orders. I just spoke the way you speak when a child is standing too close to the edge of something and doesn't understand distance anymore. You can go home, I said. The words surprised me the moment they existed. The trees went still in a way trees do not go still. The water surface flattened even more than flat. For a second, the world felt paused, and it was very clear that pausing wasn't my decision. The last thing happened. She stepped away from the edge. Not much. Just enough that memory didn't have to repeat itself again right then. The blurry outline faded, not vanished, not evaporated. Faded the way a thought fades when it realizes it doesn't need to insist anymore for one moment. Something moved behind us on the bridge. Quick small steps running past our backs toward the trail, then stopping halfway as if someone was checking to see whether we'd follow. We didn't. Leaving didn't feel like victory. It felt like being dismissed. At the car, my phone turned itself back on completely. A voice memo app I didn't open had recorded 11 minutes of audio. We listened while the heater ran and the forest pretended it wasn't listening. Near the end of the file, after static and our breathing, a small voice said one sentence clearly. Not a ghost voice, a tired child's voice. Don't shine it on me. Then the recording ended. People ask whether the story is true, whether a girl died there in the 1870s, whether the case sits unsolved in old records, whether hikers still hear the scream and the footsteps. Those are the wrong questions. The right one is whether a place can rehearse grief long enough that it remembers how to use it, whether a bridge can learn the weight of small steps, whether water can learn silence that listens back. Lum's Pond is beautiful by daylight. Some beauty isn't meant for daylight. Sometimes at night, when my room is dark and my phone glitches for no reason, I think about that small hand that didn't want to be held, only noticed, and about how light didn't rescue her. It only showed her where the edge was again. If that small voice asked you to turn the light off, would you listen? The elevator was supposed to take me to the lobby. Instead, at 2:13 a.m. on January 2nd, 2026, it stopped by itself on the 7th floor of the Emily Morgan Hotel, and the doors slid open onto a hallway that smelled like hospital disinfectant. I was staring at the glowing 7 I hadn't pressed when I saw her, a nurse in an old white uniform, standing halfway down the corridor, smoothing invisible sheets on an invisible bed, and slowly lifting her head to look straight at me. This happened at the Emily Morgan Hotel, 705 East Houston Street, in San Antonio, Texas, United States. I live in Austin and was in town for a 2-day software conference at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. I booked the Emily Morgan because it faced the Alamo and the advance rate was good. When the clerk handed me the key for room 717 at 4:41 p.m. on January 1st, he glanced at the number and said, 7th floor, people get stories up there. Then smiled in a way that didn't quite look like a joke. The room itself looked normal. From the window I could see Alamo Plaza and headlights sliding along East Houston Street. A card on the desk explained that the building had opened as the Medical Arts Building, with doctors' offices, surgical floors, and a morgue in the basement. It mentioned that the 7th floor once held critical patients. I read it, thought it was clever marketing for the ghost tours, and went to bed. The first night, nothing much happened. I got back around 10:30 p.m., answered some email, and fell asleep with the TV on low. At 3:07 a.m., I woke up for no obvious reason and caught a sharp smell of rubbing alcohol and metal, the exact scent of a hospital corridor. The thermostat still said 69 degrees. The smell faded in less than a minute. Half asleep, I told myself it was cleaning product, drifting from another floor, and went back to bed. The second night felt different the moment I walked in. I returned to the hotel at 11:32 p.m. on January 2nd. When I unlocked 717 at 11:36 p.m., the room felt cooler, even though the thermostat hadn't moved. I locked the deadbolt and latch, left the bathroom door cracked so its light would spill into the room, and set my phone on the nightstand. At 12:08 a.m., I lay down, planning to scroll a bit before sleeping. I must have drifted off almost immediately. I woke up because someone was tucking my blanket around my legs. Fingers pressed the comforter along my shins and pushed the edge down, tucking it under the mattress with quick, practiced motions, the way nurses do when they make a bed with someone still in it. My hands were on top of the blanket. No one should have been at the end of the bed. I jerked my legs up and sat upright. The room was empty. The blanket at the bottom of the bed, though, was perfectly smooth and tight, not the loose mess I usually make. The disinfectant smell was stronger now and seemed to be drifting from the doorway between the bed and the bathroom. I turned the main light on and checked everything. The door was still deadbolted from the inside. The latch was set. The connecting door to the next room was locked. The closet and bathroom were empty. The window was closed. Nothing had been moved. The air still smelled like a hospital rather than a hotel room. At 2:07 a.m., the room phone rang. The screen said internal call. The ring had a harsher tone than usual, like an older bell sound under the normal chime. I picked up and said hello. No one answered. I heard only static and a low, uneven hiss that rose and fell like someone breathing in a tiled room. I said hello again. The static swelled for a second, then cut off with a clean click. I called the front desk. The clerk paused, then said, "We haven't called your room, sir. Sometimes an old service phone bounces through the system. It happens on a couple of floors." His answer sounded practiced rather than surprised. By then I knew I wasn't going back to sleep. Between the tucked blanket, the smell, and the call, the room felt like it was remembering what it used to be. I decided to go downstairs, sit in the lobby, and maybe walk once around the Alamo. I put my shoes on, grabbed my key card, and stepped into the hallway outside 717 at 2:12 a.m. The corridor was quiet. Dark carpet, soft wall lights, closed doors on both sides. That same antiseptic smell hung here too. I pressed the elevator button and stepped into the car when it arrived. I hit L for lobby and watched the doors close. The elevator hummed and started down. The numbers changed, 9, then 8. Just before it should have kept going, the car shuddered lightly and stopped. The 7 button lit up by itself. I hadn't touched it. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open onto the 7th floor hallway again. It was 2:13 a.m. The disinfectant smell rolled in stronger, with a faint, burned edge I couldn't place. Just beyond the threshold, 2 darker patches sat side by side on the carpet, exactly where a pair of shoes would be if someone were standing very still in front of the elevator facing me. There were no other marks. It felt less like an empty hallway and more like someone was already there, invisible except for the weight they left. I kept my thumb on the door close button but leaned forward to look down the corridor. At first there was nothing. Then, near the far end, the shadows thickened and separated from the wall. A woman stepped into the light. She wore a white nurse's dress that fell below the knee, with short sleeves and a small cap over dark hair pulled back from her face. The style was clearly outdated. Her outline was sharp, but when I tried to fix her features in my memory, they slid out of focus again. She walked with steady, unhurried steps to a blank stretch of wall between 2 room doors and turned sideways. There was nothing there, no bed, no cart, no equipment. She lifted her hands and began smoothing something at waist height, fingers moving in small, precise motions, as if flattening a sheet and tucking in corners around a body I couldn't see. She leaned forward like she was checking on someone, adjusted an invisible pillow, then smoothed the empty air again. The elevator doors stayed open. I let go of the button. They still didn't move. For a few long seconds, it felt like the elevator was waiting for my decision. The nurse's hands went still. She turned her head and looked directly at me. The smell of disinfectant surged, sharp enough that I could taste it. The fear that hit me wasn't dramatic. It was simple. I knew that if I stepped into that hallway, she would treat me like another patient on a floor that no longer exists for anyone but her. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just held her gaze and waited for the doors to close. The doors finally slid shut and the car dropped toward the lobby. At 2:16 a.m., I walked out into normal hotel air, told the clerk what I'd seen, and let him move me to a lower floor. If you've ever stayed in a former hospital and felt someone doing rounds outside your door, share it below.